Hello everyone. Today I'm going to speak to you about slavery. Not only slavery, but the attitude behind slavery, the mentality behind slavery, and the reason why an enlightened society like the United States of America. Why an enlightened society like the United States of America could support such an act. Now, when we look back then, we could look back and say, you know what? These people were ignorant. These people were bigots. These people were mean-spirited. These people were the worst of us. We are better than they. We have come far. We do not engage in such vile activities. We could say all these things, but when we examine the root cause of slavery and what caused society to have such a visceral reaction when they went to war, might be wondering why the South fought so hard against the North. The key belief that allowed a society like the one in the United States of America to accept slavery and to accept the treatment of blacks like what was done was a dehumanizing attitude, a dehumanizing behavior. When you dehumanize someone, you bring them to a level below that of yours. You bring them below the level of a human being. And when you do that, the person essentially becomes an animal, a creature that you could do anything to. Because this thing isn't a human being. So when you examine the laws back then and how they said that a slave was 1 or 2/3 of a human being, all that stuff dehumanized the blacks. And it allowed the majority whites to treat them as such. Slavery, they were treated as slaves. They were lynched. They were put at the back of the buses and all other things. Murdered. All that stuff was acceptable because society on a whole, or you could say pretty much the majority of society, had accepted that the blacks were subhuman and therefore they did not deserve to be treated like the true human beings. And we would say right now, oh, if I were there, I know better. I wouldn't support that. I wouldn't treat the blacks in this way. I would speak against it. I know better. Really? How about I give you a test to show you or to prove to you that you may have done quite differently? How? You may ask, how am I going to prove this? Well, I'm going to use an act which happens right here, right now, in the United States of America, which is even worse than slavery. Interesting, right? Even worse than slavery. Now, this particular act I will not mention because of some very specific reasons. But I will give you some breadcrumbs and you'll have to figure it out for yourself. This particular act, which is worse than slavery, results in the murder of millions upon millions of human beings right under our noses. And I repeat, millions upon millions of human beings, to the count where it surpasses all the lives lost in all of the wars that the United States have ever engaged in. In fact, it's not even close. It's exponentially greater than all the lives lost in the wars that the United States have fought. That's how much blood has been shed by those who engage in this act. Now, this act is allowed because society on a whole has accepted or believes that those who suffer from this act are not human beings. If you listen closely to the rhetoric, you will see a concerted effort being put out to make sure that this attitude is preserved. These are not human beings, and since they're not human beings, they will be treated as such. Does that sound very familiar? Does it now make sense to you how an enlightened society like the one we know as the United States of America could accept something like slavery? That the ordinary Joe or the ordinary Jane walking down the street, how they supported slavery back then. They supported it because they drank hook, line and sinker this belief that the Negroes were subhuman. And right now, we allow an activity, an act which is even worse than slavery, because hook, line and sinker we have swallowed that these human beings I am referring to in the current day are not human. And therefore, since they are not human, then we are allowed to murder them by the multiplied millions. Do you have a better understanding now of why people went to war over the slavery issue? How passionate the two sides were? Equally passionate in that only war could resolve this conflict. But right now it seems so plain, it seems so easy for us. But let's think of it. What if right now someone decides, enough is enough. Enough murder has been committed. Enough lives have been lost. Millions of lives. Too much bloodshed. It has to stop. Wouldn't it be ironic that just like back then when the Civil War happened, war would be declared, and you very well may be one of the soldiers who will go to the front line and fight for the cause of murder right here, right now. Food for thought. Thank you for your time.